Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the WHOLESTIC Method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey there, it's Debbie Potts, and I am excited to announce that Dr. Amie Hornaman, the Thyroid Fixer, and I are going to co-host a podcast together once a month is our goal, and we are going to talk about thyroid health, about hormone balance, about fat loss, performance gains, hacks, a little bit of everything. So, today's episode is our first one together, so let me know your questions for myself and Dr. Amie what to talk about on our shared show we're going to do. And also, I am doing a solo podcast on different topics every Thursday, and it would be great for you to tell me your top subjects you want me to dive into for the endurance athlete, the female athlete, and the aging athlete. So I'm on a mission to help clear up some information out there because it's not one size fits all. And we are active individuals looking to improve fat loss, performance, and longevity. And that information out there for fasting, for nutrition, and nutrient timing is going to be a little bit different, as well as we need to talk about the lifestyle habits. As I talk about the holistic method is, of course, we talk about nutrition and exercise, but we need to also always talk about stress management. Not too much, not too little. The Goldilocks effect for everything, including stress and sleep and movement throughout the day and digestion, gut health, hydration, happiness, play, and gratitude. So all that is what we'll talk about. And Dr. Amie, if you don't know, her podcast is also a great one to listen to. It's called The Thyroid Fixer, and her website is Dr. Amie Hornaman. Her name's spelled A-M-I-E, Dr. Amie with the I-E. She is on her own mission to help people with thyroid issues around the world and give them their lives back using her transformational program called the Fix Method, F-I-X. She's the co-founder or the founder of the Institute for Thyroid and Hormone Optimization. She, of course, as we all have had our own experience and our own journey, so her symptoms of misdiagnoses and improper treatment led her down this path, and we all share that passion, finding our own purpose, how to help you avoid going through what we all have had in our own health journey. So Amie works with you and has great programs on her website and blogs and podcasts, but making sure we're not just looking at lab values, but we also want to look at why is your thyroid low and what is going on. So we'll talk a little bit about thyroid today, but more so other topics, and we're going to dive into more about the endurance athlete today on this show and questions that her listeners had more for me. So hopefully you'll get some insight on some topics in this episode. I also want to just remind you to go to YouTube channel Low Carb Athlete, and you'll find all sorts of information on slides I've been presenting, as well as all the slides I create for my podcasts that I've been doing solo, and my seminars I've been presenting are made into ebooks. So if you go to debbiepotts.net, you will find a lot of different ebooks that are free. So if you want to learn more, go to my website, debbiepotts.net. So just to remind you that athletes do need to be aware of their thyroid health, and chronic stress impacts the thyroid. So when we have HPA axis dysfunction, that's the kind of what we call adrenal exhaustion, adrenal fatigue in the past, but the hypothalamus pituitary to adrenal gland axis, once it gets dysfunctional, imbalanced somewhere along the way, it is also correlated to thyroid issues. So when cortisol is up, thyroid's usually down. But we want to look at the big picture, look at the why. So I have everyone do a full lab test, full blood chemistry, Dutch test, GI map. We want to look at all these labs so we can see the whole picture. So yes, we want to see thyroid levels, but we want to look at the full thyroid panel. We want to look at how is your liver congested, because if our liver isn't functioning, we don't have that conversion of T4 to T3. And also gut health is really important for conversion as well. We want to look at your reverse T3. So as an FDN practitioner, we're taught to investigate the why. So is your thyroid low, your hormones are off, instead of just taking a medication or supplement, we also, and first of all, want to start with the lifestyle habits and nutrition and proper exercise, but want to look at why, what else is going on, what's causing these numbers to be high or low. So example, when the liver is congested, the ability to convert thyroid hormone to produce TBG to clear excess estrogen is impaired. So TBG levels decline, reducing thyroid transport to the target cells. T4 to T3 conversion is also compromised, slowing metabolic activity. Then we have thyroid, the T3S and T3AC levels decline. That impacts the gut's role in the thyroid hormone conversion. So those are the thyroid hormones in your gut. So microbiome health is super essential, as well as liver and adrenals, to help improve our thyroid health. So also we want to look at reverse T3, as those levels can increase, and that means the brakes are on the metabolism. So reverse T3 is kind of going, whoa, hold on, something is causing stress in the body. Let's put everything on hold. So I always want to look at reverse T3. And estrogen levels can rise if estrogen compromises T3 and they fight for the binding sites, TBG binding sites on the liver. So we want to make sure liver health is at optimal levels. So low thyroid function can result in a sluggish liver and gallbladder, and this can increase the toxic burden on the liver and help set stage for a vicious cycle of dysfunction. So this is what the FDN practitioner program teaches us as practitioners, and really look at what's going on and why. So why is there liver congestion? Genetic factors that can downregulate detox pathways. Toxic chemicals are everywhere. Heavy metals. I just did my heavy metal hair mineral test. I'll find out from upgraded formulas my results. Gut pathogens, parasites, bacteria, yeast, oxidative stress, inflammation, circulating immunoglobulins, chronic alcohol use, medications, leaky gut, hormone imbalances, and constipation are all contributors to congesting our liver. So think phase 1 and phase 2 detox pathways are kind of the washing machine, the rinse and the wash cycle. In phase 3, it's your drainage cycle, getting those toxins broken up and release them, and then drainage pathways as peeing and pooping and sweating. So that's why we want to do the sauna, make sure we're not constipated, and make sure we're peeing right and everything's functioning correctly. So that's what I just want to touch on. I will do more in a solo podcast about all these hormones, but just want to touch on glucose thyroid and cortisol, how that's connected. Also the cortisol, glucose, insulin, thyroid connection we've talked a little bit about, but all this is really important, that cortisol is up, glucose is up, insulin's going to go up, and thyroid is down. So we want to look at the big picture. So with that, I'm going to bring on my interview with Dr. Amie, and let me know, again, message me, Low Carb Athlete at iCloud, or go to YouTube channel or the website, debbiepotts.net, show notes to message me your questions, comments, and what you want to hear more of from myself and with my shows with Amie. See you later. Hey, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm with my co-host today, our special show with Dr. Amie, the Thyroid Fixer. Hi, Amie. What's going on with you?
Deb. Hi. I'm excited for this because we have so much of the same audience and our principles just kind of align so well, which we're going to get into today. Thyroid hormones training, the whole deal, eating. So I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, I think what we're both on a mission to get everyone fit and healthy from the inside out, improve the aging process and performance in life. And for me, it's life and sports. And I think it's really important to look at the whole person. And as I call it, the holistic method, but you're doing the same thing. We're working on what's your why, get everyone's body to optimal health by looking at homeostasis and looking at functional labs, lifestyle habits, what they're eating, how they're eating, and exercising, all of that. So what do you find is going on in people coming to you for help for? Is just everyone struggling with thyroid issues, as I hear with my clients?
And it's the weight thing. And I know you see this probably in your female population that come to you, but I can't lose you. I'm gaining weight and it's like nonstop. They're looking sideways at a brownie. They're putting on 5 pounds. And then the fatigue, the hair loss, the dry skin, the low libido. So I deal with thyroid and hormone conditions and kind of tie that all together. And of course, look at their food and their training. And as you know, it's just that full picture that you have to look at to really help someone optimize their body, optimize their health, and then get their life back.
Yeah, because that's the same with me. I'm, endurance athletes and athletes of all levels, but really to be fit and healthy from the inside out is looking at so many different things. So I call it the holistic method. From years of being a personal trainer for 25 years, I wasn't getting people healthy by training them in the gym twice a week. And so quickly I realized there's so much more to being healthy than just seeing a personal trainer twice a week and saying, hey, I'm great. And really look at all of it. But yeah, so mine is look at same as you, is nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, movement throughout the day, not sitting like I am right now. And digestion, gut health is huge, and hydration. And my favorite thing is happiness, gratitude, joy, playing and laughing, having a good time. So none of those are more important than the other. They're all work together. And I think what I'd love to talk to you about is the impact on fat loss, health, and performance with chronic stress, and how chronic stress and the thyroid are connected for people struggling to lose weight. So let's kind of just dive into it. What do you think for fat loss? What is the biggest struggle besides, eating crappy food? But what do you think is the big thing with fat loss issues? People, even if I gained 30 pounds when I got my adrenal fatigue issues almost 10 years ago, that I was doing low carb, I was doing fasted exercise, I was training high level for Ironmans and long distance events, but I still gained 30 pounds, had nothing to do with my exercise and nutrition, and had low hormones and thyroid. So what is your learning from your clients coming to you for struggling with fat loss? Touched on a little bit, so dive into that.
Well, and it's funny because a lot of people will come to me and they will be on the perfect diet. I'll even see it. I'll see it right in front of me. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're getting in the protein that you need for your lean, sexy muscle. You're getting in the right amount of carbs to fuel your body. And even if they are insulin resistant, they're doing low carb and their insulin is nice and low, and that's beautiful. But what I'll see is that thyroid, and then the really big one for women, testosterone, is off. And if those are off, you have to remember that the thyroid gland is the master gland. So it's literally controlling your metabolism. It is controlling your body's ability to tap into your fat stores for fuel. So you could, like you said, Debbie, you could be going to the gym. You could be going to the gym twice a day. You could be training for an endurance race, and you could be training for an Ironman. And if your thyroid is off, if your T3 is low, if your reverse T3 is elevated, if your testosterone is low, maybe because the thyroid is off itself and the thyroid is controlling sex hormone levels and tanking your testosterone, or maybe you're just estrogen dominant and your testosterone is low, or you're just getting older and your testosterone is low, or your doctor doesn't give a crap that your testosterone is low and is telling you that you're normal. So all of those come together to provide a person with metabolism. And there's a forgotten thyroid hormone too that we can talk about a little bit, T2, that actually increases the basal metabolic rate without doing anything else, without jacking up the thyroid, without causing you to sweat more and heart palpitations and all that some people can't experience when we start treating their thyroid. This allows that basal metabolic rate to come up and get more activated and get more efficient at burning your own body fat for fuel. Now, you mentioned stress. So cortisol comes in, and here's what I see. I see the typical woman, and this is where I want you to chime in for my audience. I will see the typical woman come in, and she is so frustrated over not losing weight. Either she is an endurance athlete because it's fun, or she's turning herself into one because she's going to the gym twice a day. And that hard training without proper thyroid function, without proper eating, without proper fueling, without the happiness aspect, without all of those things that you talk about in your holistic method, that's when I see the thyroid tank. That's when I see fat loss stop. It's like the body goes, screw you. You're under stress. All you're doing is stressing us out every single day. So if you think that we're going to work, no way. We're going to stop burning fat. We're going to stop your metabolism. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to have energy. And that's where that cortisol adrenal piece comes in, when I see women overtraining themselves, under eating and overtraining, trying to get that weight off.
Yes. And that is what I keep talking about on my podcast, because I think this is kind of an epidemic for the female athletes, because we're doing what we're listening to on other podcasts and reading on social media that I think I did this myself 5+ 10 years ago when I started doing more fasted exercise and doing, when you're doing lower carb, higher fat and protein, you're just not hungry. But I was working out, say 1 or 3 times a day. I was a personal trainer full-time, coaching people. I was moving and then doing my own workouts and, doing a lot of Debbie demos because I own my own gyms. I'm always showing people stuff. So I was active. And you've seen my hormones. We did a whole show on that last year and I just redid them again, and they're in the tank because I was doing too much of everything. So that's what I always talk about, the Goldilocks effect. More is not better. Less is not always great, but sometimes less is more, and finding that Goldilocks effect, because for athletes, female athletes, we want to work out. It feels good. You feel like you might have the mentality that I just ate, so I need to work out again. And so we tend to undereat and overtrain. We have that negative energy balance, and that's putting our hormones in distress and creating that, I think, red flag of that HPA axis, that cortisol is going to go up because we're feeling like we're in emergency, and the body is so amazingly smart that it says, okay, we need to protect you. Let's put everything else on hold and let you respond to that threat or emergency. We need to, focus on this task at hand. So I think, first of all, is looking at, that's why I love doing personalized coaching, creating personalized program, because there's so much more to that, to take off those layers and dive deep into, okay, what's actually going on? What's driving this? Because you can take all the supplements you want, all the thyroid medication you want, but until you address your why, which could be more than one thing, we never know what exactly. It could be like, really starting with those lifestyle habits first, and how we respond to stress, and how we fill our day, and how we start and finish your day, and sleep. But I think it's that relationship with exercise and our relationship with food that some people need to work on. I just did a podcast on that with my friend, saying, okay, what are you running to? What are you running from? Because sometimes there's something else going on, traumatic, the way we were raised. I mean, there's so much more to it. But I think weight loss, fat loss stalls, and thyroid issues, chronic stress can sometimes just be something we need to work on, a little therapy.
And you're right. That could be a totally separate podcast of mindset. And what are you running from? What are you running to? Because that stressor alone, that I think, at least in my patient population, they tend to forget, because part of that's my fault. I focus on, let's optimize your thyroid. Don't be on T4 only. Let's use T3. Let's use T2. Let's do all of this. Let's get testosterone in you. And then my patients become hyper focused on the hormone piece, which is incredibly important. Don't get me wrong. It's of utmost importance. But then we start forgetting about the little things. We start forgetting about what we put in our mouth. We start forgetting about what we're stressed about. We start forgetting about those subconscious, unconscious thoughts that literally drive our behavior. So that's where mindless eating comes in. That's where cortisol jacking up comes in. I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because that's a great message, even for my listeners, is let's not forget about those little things too. Let's not forget about the mindset piece, the eating piece. It's not little, but I think it's sometimes what I see, and you can chime in on this, Debbie, with your clients. What I see is that people think they're doing good. And even if I give them a plan to follow, I'll check in with them later and they'll be like, no, I'm fine. Here's what I'm eating. And I'm like, why are you eating a protein bar that's basically a candy bar? Why are you doing, the wrong type of protein, like a cheap ass whey protein? Why are you? And it's like everything that I told them not to do, they're doing. And then they think that they're doing just fine. They think they're eating fine, but it's like, no, let's really look at this. I mean, do you see that too? When you're telling a client how to eat, they're kind of all over the place doing their own thing.
Well, that's what today's Friday. And that's what I do this afternoon is check everyone's logs. So I use Practice Better. People use Chronometer, and I look at their logs for the week. I write people's workout programs if they're my VIP clients, and look at their training peaks, look at their metrics, and look at all that data on Fridays usually. And a lot of times, like I have, type 2 diabetes clients that are athletes, and then there's people that are, prone to diabetes. They have high insulin resistance going on, that it is interesting to look at what they're eating. So that's always like, hey, I always think I've learned that self-care is self-love, and loving yourself enough first to make those choices. And, no one's going to do it for you. So it's almost like, okay, like I had to tell a client that's not responding and we're working on all this stuff. I go, you know what? I can't help you. Help yourself if you're not going to respond to me and be active in this journey. So, I don't take on clients. Like we interview them first and say, okay, are you motivated out of scale 1 to 10? Well, if you're not like a 9 or 10, you're not ready to work with me. Don't come to me when you're ready, because it is a lot of work to do all this. Because while we wait for functional lab testing results, we're working on the nutrition, the exercise, the sleep, whatever we need to focus on first, and work on one thing at a time. But anyways, I'm going off tangent. The thing is, the food log, it's just like, okay, McDonald's, why are you going to McDonald's? What? But then it's not just getting like, why did you do that? But let's go deeper into that, because some people are all or none, and they feel like they're doing really good. And then they thought they're okay, I can go have that donut, or, go get fast, crappy food. And they have like a binge day, and then we have to start over again. And it's more looking at like, let's learn from that experience and let's talk about it. And that's why I do coaching calls with people, and then with their login and check on that, because there's always something more like, okay, to me, that's something we can stop, pause, and let's discuss it. And let's try to learn and figure out strategies to overcome that when it happens again, because it will. Yeah. But let's look at how to deal with that. And so you're aware of your actions, you're aware of your emotions, and what are you tied to? And some people are just so hard on themselves that they, if they're not perfection at it, then they like say, screw it, I'm just going to go the opposite. So it's learning that, I think, is always learning how to work with clients and work on their personality. So it's a journey, but that, it's what you're eating, what you're putting into your mouth, but how you're eating, that mindless versus mindfully, because you can eat all the great food, but if you're eating like super fast, not chewing your food, you're still going to have issues too.
And you and I are definitely, we have that in our past that we're guilty of, because I know if you owned a fitness studio, and I remember being back to back with clients, and you're just wolfing down the food in between. You're like, all right, I got 30 seconds before Susan comes in. And, and you're just throwing the food down, and it's total mindless eating.
But I was opposite. I was doing bulletproof copy. I wrote this in my book, Life is Not a Race. I wasn't eating, like I missed you for the last 2010, 2019, that I just would not eat till I got there. I would just doing a shakes, or I was doing my bulletproof coffee when that started. And so I was not eating enough, and I had that negative energy balance that put my body into that emergency state, high alert mode that threw my hormones off. But yeah, so it is like eating too fast or not eating enough is always that issue when you are super busy.
Yeah.
And it's a problem.
So Deb, what's your thoughts on fasted exercise? Since you kind of brought up the fact that you would hit the gym and you'd be doing a bulletproof coffee, and I'm kind of jumping around with our plan here, but I want to talk about fasted exercise. What's your take on it?
I've been trying to do a solo cast, Debbie podcast on this, because I've been diving into this because I used to do this all the time. And now I'm experimenting with some stuff. And if you listen to Dr. Stacy Sims, I'm rereading her book. Roar is her first one. Women Are Not Small Men. And then her new one's out for more menopausal women, The Next Level, which I had brought with me. And it's really different men to women. So if you look at the females, fasted exercise benefits men. There's so many variables. So I've done a whole slide presentation PowerPoint that I've been trying to record 30 minutes at a time. So basically, women, if you're, 12-hour fast, it's more like what you ate the night before. And that's for me personally. Sometimes I do better eating my big meal like at 2, 3 o'clock, and then I'll go to the gym some nights or do something, but I don't eat 3 hours before bed. So you got to work backwards to figure out people's eating window. I was doing mostly like OMAD before it was called OMAD, and doing a lot of fasted, just more liquid fat calories, keeping a fat burning state and exercising a lot. And that's probably not getting enough calories in. So what they're saying, fasted exercise for women, you might perform better if you have a little calories beforehand. So it doesn't mean you have to have a meal, especially if I work out at 5:30 in the morning. I'm an early riser, that I might benefit instead of just that straight black coffee. I can actually put a little bit of creamer in there and collagen, have like Laird's creamer that sweetened has some coconut sugar in it. So I'm having like 20 calories and I can be okay, have that in. I can add some Bub's collagen or some collagen in there and have some calories before my workout. Now, it also depends on what type of workout you're doing. If I'm doing a low heart rate, we call it like max aerobic function heart rate, or maffetone. Everyone's calling it zone 2 now. And that is going to be more fat burning, keeping that heart rate to like 120, 130 for me to 140 max. That I don't really need to eat anything for. But if I'm going to do like today, I did sprints on the hill, and I lifted weights and I did hill sprints outside running. I am going to be burning more carbohydrates. So I should eat a little something before, because what Stacy Sims says is female athletes burn a little bit of carbs first, and then they shift to fat burning. Men go fat. Women were actually better at fat burning and can go longer, which did Ironmans is what I was doing in marathons and 50K trail runs. So I'm like, I could go forever burning fat and feel great. But if you're doing a morning workout, suggested to have a little bit of calories beforehand. And Ben Greenfield has done some seminars in this, and there's some research, and Rob Wolf and a bunch of other people. So females versus men should have a little something. So that just is kind of nice, because I'm like, I can put something in my coffee and be okay with that. And then afterwards, having that protein. Men can wait a little bit longer. Women, they're saying like women should have a little more protein and carbs, say if it's a shake, or again, if you want a second cup of coffee, limit it to 2 cups, but having something in there again. So fasting too much is that whole kisspeptin hormone you'll hear about, that kind of, again, high alert, suppresses those hormones. And I think we need to be careful of that, the female athletes, because it's so easy to exercise fasted if you're fat adapted, and I can do a lot and feel great. But then I always realized, okay, could I have gone faster? Can I've improved my performance? Could I have lifted heavier weights? Whatever that workout is, I think a lot of people get into bragging, I didn't eat all day and I could be doing all this stuff fasted. Well, I'm always like, okay, well, if you ate a little something, you're still burning fat. Would that improve your performance? So there's a lot to it. That's why I've been trying to do these solo casts. So I don't know if that answered your question. Summary is yes, women should eat little something if they're doing a harder workout.
And harder workout is the key there. So if you're going to a Zumba class, or if you're going to yoga, you don't need to eat carb. Or if you're going to go to the gym and get on the elliptical and spend 45 minutes on the elliptical or the treadmill, you don't need carbohydrates before your workout, because that's what drives me. Oh my gosh.
That's a stupid workout.
Well, exactly. That's a stupid workout.
Don't even do that workout. It's a waste of time. 2, you got to be more efficient with your workouts. So right. I do agree with Dr. Stacy Sims. Women, especially pre-menopausal and post-menopausal, need to lift heavy things. Yes. We need to 3 to 6 repetitions. I can't lift another one. And that's how I lift. I'm not a big, she's more CrossFit power lifter. I don't like that. I'm more free weights person. But we also need to prioritize protein that we'll talk about, and then short intensity intervals, like all out 10, 30 seconds. And I went to Torrey Pines this morning. There's a big hill. I ran on the beach, then cut over onto the road, and I hit 30-second sprints and ran hard, and then recovered 30 seconds or more. And then so use training by that heart rate. Don't do that back-to-back days. Do it every other day, spread it out. So 2 to 3 times a week, you're finishing that cardio session with 30-second sprints. It doesn't mean like an hour of it. So it just means like warm up, do some cardio if that makes you feel good, 20 minutes or something, 30 minutes. Today I just did 45 minutes, but I finished with sprints and then cooled down. So that is like more of ideal workout to go back to, to 45 minutes. I see people like where I am at now is the Bay Club where I work out. And I just watch people in the morning going, hey, what a waste of time. You get up early, go get the most out of your workout.
I know.
So another conversation too.
It cracks me up. No, I always say lift heavy shit. You have to.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then all you're doing is burning your own muscle tissue. And when we talked earlier about thyroid and cortisol, that long, and we're going to get into endurance training too, because listen, if you want to do endurance training, that's fine. You have to do it right. But that long, steady state cardio without the weight component, without you actually lifting a heavy weight. And I don't mean the 10-pound dumbbells that you're doing for 20, 25 reps. I mean, really heavy weights paired up with high intensity interval training. That's what's going to get you the body that you want. And it's going to make you more metabolically flexible, metabolically efficient. You're going to be burning more fat at rest. And you're not even talking about the long-term effects of longevity, of protection of your bones. When you have that muscle surrounding your bones, you're less likely to break your bones as you age. So there's so many benefits to lifting heavy, but that long, steady state cardio actually will tank your thyroid. So when I think back to when I was competing, those workouts were 2-a-days, and they always centered around cardio. You did cardio twice a day, sometimes an hour each time, which looking back now is just ridiculous, because I was burning my own muscle that I wanted for the stage. And I was increasing my cortisol, which was just putting my body in a constant stress state all the time. It did not do me. If I ever competed again, which I won't, but if I ever did, I would absolutely do keto for my training and for my nutrition. And I would not be doing cardio twice a day. I would be doing very minimal cardio, high intensity sprint interval work, and then call it a day for that component of the workout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for you, I got a big question.
Okay. What?
Big question for you. Why do endurance athletes gain weight? I have a friend. She literally just did a 50-mile. I want to say it was a triathlon, some kind of crazy race that you people do. And she texted me after, she's like, I'm up 5 pounds. I'm like, yeah, you and every other woman that I know that's ever trained for a marathon. Sometimes it's 10 pounds. So why do endurance athletes gain weight when they're training?
So I've been thinking about this because I started going down this path as I was coaching people for half marathons like 20 years ago. I started going into metabolic efficiency testing on people on treadmill and at bike and at rest with a cart that we measure their fat burning and carbs, where their metabolic crossover point is. I started doing heart rate training before then with Sally Edwards, who actually created Heart Zone training. And so I'm in this area, and I started going into creating, helping clients figure out how to lose weight. Because what I saw when I was coaching people I used to be Vancouver Half Marathon in BC, Canada every year. And then I was like, why are people gaining weight? What are they doing? That's why I got into nutrition, because I was always interested in nutrition, but to learn about metabolic efficiency and timing your carbs and fat and protein and all that, I've, 20 years now. So answer your question. There's so much to it. I think it's how people train, not doing enough of that, Phil Maffetone, we do the 180 minus your age is your max aerobic function heart rate, or get metabolic efficiency tests, figure out your heart rate training zones. So you're in that zone 1, zone 2. Then, like we said, build that base up, then add speed work 20%. So it's 80-20% training. Then you're becoming more a fat adapted athlete, training your body to burn fat as fuel, how you're training. So it's not just how you're eating, low carb, higher fat and protein, carb timing, depending on the type of workout. Now, a lot of people, if they aren't familiar with training, do that black hole training. So it's not to the zone 1-2, not doing the all out HIIT training. They're in between where they're just not really, they're in that black hole, it's called. It's not really a lot of benefit. So they're overtraining.
Can you get more?
They're overtraining.
Specific on that anaerobic 180 state. Minus what you were talking about in the beginning. And then what is the black hole training?
Black hole training is just was, I'll start with that because you're
I can't hear you.
Oh, hold on. Can you hear?
Yeah. Good.
Okay. So black hole training is Ben Greenfield and other people used to talk about this years ago, that you're in that no man's land. That is the benefit of speed work and the HIIT training. And then the benefits of zone 2 is where you're burning more fat and then your anaerobic threshold. If you're kind of in between that, it's kind of your overtraining. You're going to take longer to recover. It's more oxidative stress. It's when people say my fat burning aerobic zone is 120 to 140 heart rate. And then my speed workout's 160 to 170 heart rate to hit those higher numbers on sprints. But if I do all my long runs, because it's hard to keep your heart rate down when you're running. So if I do my running at 150 heart rate, I'm always kind of burning mostly carbohydrates and I'm depleting muscle glycogen. Then people might have to eat more. They slow down and they're eating more gels and getting more glucose in. So they're not burning fat. And so they're getting more carb burning. So, and it's also more stress and damaging our body. So the maffetone is that what everyone, I think it's Huberman or Peter Tia, whoever's, I did a whole podcast on this the other day. I'm like, zone 2 is not new. We've always talked about this, but Phil Maffetone 30 years ago created this for endurance athletes and the Ironman athletes, a formula 180 minus your age, plus or minus 5 beats is your max aerobic function heart rate. So if you're 30 years old, you subtract 180, 30 from 180. So you're say at 150, but if you've been injured or sick, you drop 5 off of that. So 145, that's your heart rate. You want to stay at about it around and not go over. So you can do a metabolic efficiency testing cart where you're wearing the face mask and measure what your actual heart rate and where you're burning the peak amount of fat, your fat oxidation rates are. You can figure that out, but a lot of people can't. So this is just a pretty accurate formula. I used to test people in metabolic cart for 10 years and do the formula as well. I'm like, well, that's weird. They're kind of similar. So the maffetone, you can look it up. Phil Maffetone, it's called MAF, the MAF formula. So we've talked about that for years for training endurance athletes. So plus 5 if you're fit and healthy, but usually it's there. So that's kind of, that would be where you want to stay. Nowadays, everyone's calling this zone 2 training, but that's what we want to do 80% of the time. And then the 80-20 polarized training, it's called, it's a 20%. It's going to be all out speed workout, the sprints.
So that's where you're actually going up into, 150, 160, 170, and you're hitting those really high heart rate numbers where you are just sucking wind. Like that's where you have to take a break. Like I could spend all day at 135 beats per minute. I can do that all day long. But when I hit that 160, 170, I can only hold that for a short amount of time. And then I'm like, I'm catching my breath. I need to take a break.
That's what Tabata intervals, if you've heard of Tabata, that's all out, 8 sets, 20 seconds all out. But people in the fitness industry kind of ruined it, that the research was, I don't know, it's like 15 years ago now, 4 minutes, total workout, warm up, cool down. It's 20 seconds, all out, hard as you can, 10 seconds kind of rest, you pause, and then do it again, do 8 cycles of that. That is true Tabata training. But then everything got to be, we did it too. I called it Tabata timer at my fitness studio that will do something like push-ups for 20 seconds, rest, do another set. So it's supposed to be all out. That's how you get the benefits and kind of that minimal effective dose type of training. So I think a lot of people need to wear a heart rate monitor to know, okay, am I hitting 170 heart rate when I do that? Or am I just like half-assed doing it that my heart rate's just like 120? So to go all out, it means go all out. Most people don't know how to push themselves, and most people don't know how to go slow enough. So that's why I'm a big fan of still wear a heart rate monitor if you're not sure what that feels like, because people kind of stay in that middle, go back to that black hole training. So I don't know if we answered your question of why do you gain weight? I think it's because people aren't training their body to burn fat. And then the other part of that is, what are you eating before, during, and after your training and you're racing? I don't know, like we said, it could be water retention, but I think a lot of times people think they were exercising, they're burning so much, so they overeat, thinking, oh, I just worked out, I just did a 2-hour run, I'm going to just have a binge fest all day. That's how I found my clients were gaining weight. One person really taught me like every time, because he was an overeater. And so he was using exercise as a way to be able to think psychologically, oh, that means I get a hall pass. I can just eat whatever I want the rest of the Sunday.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I've even fallen into that mindset years ago. I'm out of it now, but years ago, I think we all kind of self-sabotage in that way of going like, that workout was really hard, so I can definitely eat more today. And then you go out to eat and you're like, bring on the fried mozzarella sticks, please. Thank you. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I think that's okay though, sometimes, to give permission, not eat the crappy stuff, the vegetable oils, but just go, okay, you have to earn your, if you want to like splurge one day, that's when it's like, go for a harder workout and then time it so you can eat that. It's not going to cause as much damage to you, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with that. You need to have that day to enjoy, but as long as you're not putting in inflammatory gluten PUFAs into your body that's going to jack up your inflammation, then just enjoy with the good stuff. Have a sweet potato with some butter, have extra dark chocolate if you want that. No, what I was going to ask you, Debbie, is I think there is, and I kind of alluded to this when I was talking about when I was bodybuilding, and we had that whole mindset around eating oatmeal and eating rice and eating potatoes. And I got to tell you, I splurged this weekend and I did have a bowl of oat milk because I do love it and miss it. It's not part of my regular diet. And I tested my glucose with my CGM and it was so high. It was like, for me, it was 147, 150. So that definitely spikes my glucose. But that whole mindset of when I was competing was you have to train with carbs. And I know endurance athletes have that same mindset. You have to train with carbs. Now, in the last, I would say probably 10 years, we have seen professional bodybuilders come to the scene who are muscular and ripped, and they are keto. And we have seen endurance athletes doing Ironman that are keto. So the big question is, do you need carbohydrates to train? Whether you are lifting heavy shit or you're doing a crazy Ironman like you do you need the carbohydrates?
Well, I've talked about this all year on my podcast, so people can listen.
People can go back and listen.
It's been a big topic because I hate the word keto. I hate calling it anything, how we eat.
I know.
We should eat nature's foods that eat the right macronutrient ratio that balances your blood sugar. I'm a big fan of Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's protocol, prioritizing protein, figuring out your fats, and then the carbs are real food sources. What's like the vegetables of broccoli, cauliflower, and then the safe starches and timing that around the workout. So it doesn't mean like my show's Low Carb Athlete. It doesn't mean zero carbs. Someone asks me, how many grams is low carb?
Yeah.
It could be 100 grams to 200. Some athletes can do 300 grams a day. It's so different per person depending on the type of athlete they are, how much muscle they have, what's their intensity of the workouts and all that. So it's eating real food, carbohydrates when appropriate, and it's not keto. And I was reading, if you go look at what Dr. Stacy Sims, she had a post recently of avoid keto, and I don't get it because I don't like the word keto again, but it should be, she's saying keto is 50 grams of carbs a day. And if you read her book, she says pre and postmenopausal, we are carb insensitive. We can't tolerate much carbs. So get rid of extra starchy carbs, time that with the more intense workouts. And you can time your carbs, say at dinner time, stay more into keto during the day, carbs at night, and time that. And that's what Ben Greenfield suggests too. Like you can do that or do 1 day a week, a carb refeed, having your lower carbohydrate. But 50 grams a day isn't for the athlete. That's what I keep saying on the show all year long, is that Dr. Dan Plews, who trains more our Endure IQ program, I've been taking as a coach, is that 130 grams a day is kind of 100 to 130 is what a lot of endurance athletes can tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been testing with Keto Mojo with my NutriSense, and then I'm using BioSense to breath test. It's kind of like same as Lumen, and I'm still burning a lot of fat. So we don't need to be in nutritional ketosis. We're not metabolic damage if we're a training like this. So the guidelines out there for what keto is 20, 50 grams a day is not the guidelines for the endurance athlete or the female athlete. So we can have some carbs. We're not saying eat a bagel and a muffin and a loaf of bread. It's having, the vegetables and berries. And, I've been so afraid of, I can't have any fruit because it'll spike my glucose up. Well, I've just started, it's more like, why does it spike my glucose up? Am I not able to metabolize any carbs? I'm not metabolically flexible, because that's a whole nother conversation. You can become metabolically inflexible if you're so strict on being only fat and not getting enough protein and not getting any nature's carbs. So I am rambling, but I think I don't know if that answers what you asked at all. I just kind of tangent because that's such a hot topic to me. It's like, eat what balances your blood sugar out. Play with that. Like you said, oatmeal spikes your glucose up. Some people can do some oatmeal, but it has to be properly prepared, like soaked overnight and all that stuff. But that's where it's so individualized. Like, get a CGM, measure with BioSense or levels, use or Lumen, and do all this testing, because you don't know what works or not work unless you test.
Absolutely. And it's been eye-opening. I'm using Very. I mean, it's just there's so many CGM companies out there. You can use any one. Very, VERI.
Oh, Very. Yeah. I interviewed them.
Another CGM. Yeah. But it's so eye-opening. I resisted it for so long because I joked and said, I don't want someone to tell me that my dark chocolate spikes my glucose, because then I'll be pissed. But it's very, very eye-opening. I ate a keto, and this is where I'm with you, Deb. I don't like the word keto, because when I say it to my patients, they look at me like a deer in the headlights. Like, I'm going to have to do what? And it's like, listen, I want you low carb because you're insulin resistant. We see it on your labs. And like you said, when you're perimenopausal, menopausal, you become less insulin sensitive. If you throw on a thyroid problem on top of that, chances are really good that you're insulin resistant. So I just tell them, we want to go low carb. I want you to be a fat burner. I don't care what that looks like in terms of amount of carbohydrates, because you're going to have to test that and see what works for you. You get the Keto Mojo to see if you're in ketosis. You get the CGM to see if those sneaky keto, I'm using air quotes here, foods spike you. And I ate a keto claimed air quote product. Oh my gosh, I went to 165. Keto. It was a keto product. I went to 165. I have another patient that did stevia. She went to 180. So you have to get the data for yourself. But I want to break that myth that you have to add in carbohydrates, because we do see the Lance Armstrongs of the world. Well, back in the day when, you and I were younger, the Lance Armstrongs of the world doing the goo and they're packing bananas, and you got the Gatorade. And that's what we think of when we think of endurance training, but it doesn't have to be that. You can be actually better at training when you're running on ketones versus glucose, because you have to keep replenishing that glucose. That's why there are stops along the way with the goo and with the Gatorade and with the sugary stuff, because you're going to burn through that glucose and then you need more. But when you're burning your own body fat for fuel and you're using ketones to fuel your body, that's a whole nother level of performance.
Yeah. So you just said a lot. So I'm just writing notes. One, just back up the word keto foods. That's why I don't like keto, because it happened to paleo and all these packaged food companies. And my husband's in the food industry, so I hear this. And I go to Expo West, the huge natural product show, and I walk the show. I've done it 3 times. It's Anaheim. There's 100,000 people there. It's crazy. And all the foods that are keto packaged are crap. So that's why I like to say, eat real food that doesn't come in a box. It doesn't have like 50 ingredients on the label. You should be able to read the ingredients and go, okay, because a lot of those keto foods have 3 sweeteners in them. And I can't do stevia. It gives me a headache. And yes, it'll drive my glucose up. 2, they'll have xylitol, which is going to give you a gas, and then monk fruit. So a lot of those candies and chocolates and keto packaged foods have sweeteners. So to me, you're still going to crave sweetness if you're having a food with these non-insulin glycemic balancing, whatever you want to call it, sugars, that because you're still craving sweet, not savory. So that's kind of why I'm not a fan. Part two is I've done a lot of videos recently on this topic, putting that all together. Train low, race high. So you train as a low carb athlete, and then up to 3 days before the race. So say you're 100 grams carbs a day at 130. Well, before like a big race, if you are racing, not just like I'm just going to finish it and go low heart rate. If you are racing like a triathlon or half or full marathon, a long distance, 4 or 5 hour thing to Ironman's, 10, 12, 17 hours, that you are adding in nature's carbs 3 days up before. So it's just 50 grams is what Dan Plews suggests. Dr. Plews says, okay, say I'm 130 is my sweet spot. 3 days before the race, I'm going to add 50 grams more than 50. And then I'm at 200 grams total a day. That's what works for him. That's just kind of a template. Then we adjust up or down based on that. Females are different. If you're more muscular, lean, and taller, you have like what Dr. Gabrielle Leon says, the muscles are like suitcases. So the more muscle you have, the more storage you can have, more you can fit in that suitcase. So yes. I can pack in more carbs. Again, it's real food carbs, not the pasta and all the stuff that we be told to carbo load. So it's all right.
So now that you mentioned Dr. Gabrielle, I want to talk about protein.
Yeah, my favorite topic.
I drive this point home with my patients, and it is an epidemic in women that they don't get enough protein, but they think that they are. They think they are, but they're not. So I love the protein first. I had MMA fighter Bobby Maximus on my podcast, and he said it so simply. When sometimes somebody says it really just like simple but stupid, and you're like, duh, yeah, exactly. Protein first. You got this plate. You go out to a restaurant. You got a big old steak. You got some asparagus, some broccoli, and maybe like a beautiful sweet potato. Eat the damn steak first. Don't be picking at the sweet potato. Don't be eating your vegetables first, because you're going to get full. You want to eat the protein first so you get it in. And I see these women that are getting in, maybe 50 to 80 grams of protein per day. And I'm like, you're complaining about muscle loss. You're complaining about fatigue. You're complaining about losing your hair, which is made up of amino acids. And you're not even getting in enough protein to have your heart beat, because that is a muscle too. Yeah. So what do you see in your practice regarding protein? And when you actually work with your clients to get that protein level up, what are they saying that they experience?
Well, I'll say this is where we can't do such extreme fasting. And Dr. Leon spoke right before COVID. We had nutritional therapy conference, and Cynthia Thurlow, Dr. Anna, and Dr. Gabrielle Leon all spoke on a panel, and then COVID hit. But since then, I realized, oh my gosh, I am fasting. I can't get, I'm tall, I'm 5'10". Obviously, if people saw our picture we should post from KetoCon, I'm like way taller than you. So I weigh more, and I need more protein. And to get my protein goals, so just to review, if people don't know, the Leon protocol is your ideal body weight in grams of protein a day. So if you want to weigh your ideal weight, say 150 pounds, you need 150 grams of protein a day. You want to spread that out throughout the day, say 4 hours apart, so you have time to break down and digest, synthesize that protein. That's 30 to 50 grams. So if I'm just eating one main meal a day and I'm not really eating the rest of the day because I think I'm so cool, I'm doing fasting and I'm doing OMAD and I'm exercising a lot, well, you're screwing yourself up.
I love you. That's great.
There's no way you're going to get that protein. So then I've just more so the past year going, okay, I really need, because I'm trying to biohack my way through menopause as a 50-year-old, that I'm like, I'm not gaining that fat weight that everyone talks about. I'm lifting heavy weights. I'm doing my sprints. I'm totally changing everything, going, I'm not going to be that typical menopausal lady. And plus I think I'm 35, not 50.
Exactly. Well, you look it, so.
Right. And so you have to go back to breakfast, lunch, dinner. And that doesn't have to be 3 meals. It could be a shake and 2 meals. So I have my clients just track, and I use Chronometer, and it goes into Practice Better, so I can see people can track, and I look at their macros. And if they hate doing that, I have them just take a picture. Show me what you're eating. Text me if you can't handle doing Practice Better, because some people hate doing the apps, which is cool. Right. So yeah, is eating your protein first and prioritizing it, as you said, but also Sunday, what does my week look ahead of me? When's my workout schedule? When am I doing my self-care time? What is my life, my school activities, kids, whatever you do? And then figure out what you're eating. So you have to thaw, like have food in your fridge, freezer, defrost that steak I'm going to have this day. And then maybe I'm going to make meatballs and have those on hand, and being going to have some salmon. And planning ahead is what I think is hardest, because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't get that in. Like, well, let's figure it out. How much protein is an egg? Well, don't have just one egg, and don't do the egg whites unless you have food sensitivities. Let's go 4 eggs.
Right.
And not freak out about it. Oh, it's cholesterol. I'm going to get heart attack.
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast, but yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, let's get, how much is in bone broth? Let's do 3 cups of bone broth. That's like 10 grams of protein. All right. I'm going to do shake instead of 1 scoop of whey, grass fed. I'm going to do 2 scoops. Let's put some collagen into my coffee. I mean, we figure it out, map it out, and figure out how to get it in. And then it's like, all right, as long as, can I get 100 grams in? Let's start there. But figuring out how that can happen and what that looks like. But most people struggle with it. Yes. What about you?
Most do that. Yeah, that's what I tell them to do, exactly what you're saying. You can throw a little bit of collagen in your coffee. You can throw a scoop of protein powder if you're making like keto pancakes. Like, throw it in there. It's going to be hidden. You can put that protein powder into food too, instead of just drinking it as a shake. And with that protein, now I'm going to transition into testosterone, so we can talk about that for my audience and yours before we wrap up. Testosterone, in order to have adequate amounts of testosterone, you also need protein. There's a very thin line connecting those two, but they do connect. So we know that you need that sexy lean muscle on your body. You're not going to build muscle without amino acids. I have a podcast, and I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but it's just true. The only thing worse than a vegetarian is a vegan. Why? Because you're not getting, right? You're not getting the amino acids. You're not getting that beautiful God-given protein source of animal-based protein into your body that our bodies need and require. So in order for you to build muscle, in order for you to have strength, in order for you to have energy, and I know Gabrielle talks about this too, in order for you to have energy to get through your day, in order for you to have a metabolism to burn your fat, you need protein, you need adequate amounts of testosterone. So now I'm going to transition into this for the perimenopausal, menopausal women. Now, this does not exclude 20 and 30-year-olds, because I have seen testosterone levels tank in 20 and 30-year-old females, tank. But mainly we start to see them go downhill in a woman's 40s. That's where we'll see progesterone start to decrease and testosterone goes down the toilet with it. Now, here's the problem with the standard lab value range when you're looking at testosterone. It cuts women off at 45, not 45 years old, 45 nanograms per deciliter. So you go maybe 0 to 45 is the normal, air quote, standard lab value range for a woman's testosterone, total testosterone. I don't want you even below 50. And I'm actually going to be doing a podcast soon on just this topic. I'm finding more and more that women are optimized at a much higher level. I'm talking 100, 200. My testosterone level is 370. So I'm finding that women need a little bit more, and especially endurance athletes, type A, driven individuals. You need more testosterone to fuel your body, to fuel your brain, to fuel your muscles, to give you that energy. And when you get that number up, I mean, life changes. It's not just about, and I'm not talking about looking like a female bodybuilder or looking like a dude. I'm talking about having adequate amounts of testosterone to run your body to where you stay very feminine. You're not going to, and I'm going to quote Karen Martell here. I love this word, and you can cut it out of yours if you want. You're not going to grow a clitoris. You're not going to get acne. You're not going to grow a beard. You're going to have the adequate amounts of testosterone for you to feel amazing, to feel strong. So when you go to train, whether you're training for endurance or whether you're just training to look like a badass, you're going to have that energy and that strength. You're not going to go to the gym and go, oh gosh, this 10-pound weight feels heavy and I just don't have it in me today. I just don't have it. No, that's testosterone. That's going to give you the drive. And I call testosterone the GSD hormone, the get shit done hormone, because it literally it motivates you to get through your day. So if you are a type A driver, then just like Debbie, you got a workout to do in the morning. You got a podcast to record. You got to work. You got to see people. You got to do XYZ, clean the house, cook some dinner, go grocery shop. You have all this stuff to do. And without testosterone, you're not even going to have the motivation to do it. So I urge women, my listeners, your listeners, get that level tested. Do not let your doctor call you and say, it's normal. No, look at your number, and you want that number, that total testosterone above a 50 and maybe even higher. Maybe your optimal is 125, 150, 200. I don't know. It's going to be kind of trial and error, and you should be working with someone that's going to be monitoring you, but you need that adequate amounts of testosterone. And one way to get it naturally, now I do believe in hormone replacement therapy, but one way to get it naturally is increase your protein, get good sleep, lift heavy shit. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. And the sleep is a whole nother show, but I think it is, getting the labs done. I think Dutch test and the blood chemistry, we both use Ulta Labs. And really, I just was posting yesterday to clients, like, you got to get your hormones tested and get the full blood chemistry panel and insulin, because no one wants to test insulin. And I did a show on that yesterday myself, test and not guess. And then looking at liver congestion, that's another topic too. It's just everything that's related to the hormones is so much to it. So I think, looking at what are you doing now? If you're not getting your desired results, why do you keep doing the same thing over and over again to expect different results? The definition of insanity, right? So it's just like people keep trying the same thing over again. Like, I see people in the gym every morning going, okay, you're not getting stronger. Right. Why don't you look at your program? I mean, maybe I just see him sitting there, like, just not doing anything. And I just wanted to help people. Like, do you want to get results? Well, then let's take a different direction, course correct.
Yep.
Restart and just figure out what you're doing or what you could add in lifestyles and nutrition, but also people, digestion. You're eating all that protein and fat, but are you able to even break it down? Right. And most people can't even digest protein and all that fat they're eating. They can't even digest it, emulsify it. So much to talk about. So I'm hoping we're going to try to do this once a month or so and just see what we can do to help people and I'm just on a mission to help people get healthy.
Yep.
And I see as we age, the changes that happen and people complain of this and that. It's like, you know what? It's a choice that we make, and let's take ownership of our health now and be the driver and not, struggle. Like, I see how my parents' friends are like, I don't want to be that 80-year-old going, my joint hurt and I can't walk and I have this problem. And it's like, do something about it now.
Exactly.
So
we're not going there.
No. Good. Well, thanks. Let's put your links. What's your website? People can find you if they're my listeners.
Yeah. And then right back at you. So you can go to my website, dramieHornaman.com. You can actually join my private Facebook group, which is Dr. Amie and the Thyroid Fixer Love Your Mirror. It's a really nice, tight-knit community. I'm in there a ton doing lives, answering questions. So you can jump in there and ask a question. You can post your labs in there. We're going to help you out. And then, of course, the Thyroid Fixer podcast on all podcast platforms. And you can all social media. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all that fun stuff too. So, Deb, how about you?
My website is debbiepotts.net. And the podcast is the Low Carb Athlete. And then our Facebook group page I share with my friend Stephanie's called, her group started the Keto for Endurance. So we have a private group page there for other endurance athletes. I wish I could call it the Low Carb Athlete, because again, we don't need to be in nutritional ketosis all the time. So it's just a catchy word is keto. So be careful Does it mean you need to be 50 grams a day? So that's where we are talking about all things endurance. And then my YouTube channel, Low Carb Athlete too. I've been trying to add in Thursdays, little 30-minute solo cast talking about these topics that are driving me nuts, like insulin or the train low, how to do a race as low carb athletes. So I love chatting with you, though. It's finally good to kind of collaborate and just talk shop and banter, and I miss that.
Love it.
Good time.
Love it. Great conversation. Thanks, Deb.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
And let us know, you guys, questions you want from Amie or myself, and then we can put them in our next show. So Q&A would be great.
100%.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.